Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Matt Gear and you're watching Beginner's Guitar Lessons on Matt Gear TV. So today I'm going to show you a simple chord progression using 3 basic chords all in an open position. So no bar chords for you to worry about just yet. It sounds like this. The chords that I'm playing there are a G major, a C major and a D major chord. So they're all major chords, which is why it's got quite a bright, cheerful sound to the chord progression. Let's have a look at that up close and so you can see what I'm doing with my fretting hand. So the first chord in the sequence is a G and we're going to play it like this. From the lowest string, middle finger will be on the 3rd fret, so that's your root, that's the low G. Your first finger will be on the 2nd fret of the A string, ring finger, 3rd fret of the B string, that's the 2nd thinnest string, and then pinky, little finger, will be on the 3rd fret of the high E string. So it sounds like that. Do make sure that you don't squash your hand flat on the fretboard and mute the 2 strings in the middle because you want those to ring as well. So when you strum the chord, 6 strings should ring out, and that's your first chord, that's the G. One thing to remember when you're fretting these chords, any chord really, is to fret it as close to the fret as you can. So as close to this side of the fret, not this side of the fret. So have a listen to this. If I'm trying to fret the 3rd fret here, if I fret it close to the 2nd fret, you get quite a buzzy sound. When I move closer to the 3rd fret, get a clearer sound, and that's what I want to try and do. So all of these chords, try and fret as closely to the fret as possible. The next chord in the sequence is a C major. And this is how we're going to put that together. So starting this time on the A string with the ring finger, that goes on the C here, which is the 3rd fret on the A string. On the D string, with the middle finger, we're going to play the 2nd fret. Then we're not fretting anything on the next string, but on the B string, we're fretting the 1st fret. What we're not doing when we strum the chord is strumming the low E. So if you look at my picking hand now, I'm picking starting from the A string. I'm not starting from the E string. What you can do to make sure that you don't inadvertently sound that is you can hook the thumb over the top of the fretboard and that effectively mutes that low E string. So if you do accidentally strum it, it's not going to sound a note, it's not going to ring out. So there's the C chord. The final note in the sequence is a D major, and we play that starting on the open D string, which is the 3rd fret down from the top of the fretboard here. So that will be an open string. On the next string, on the G string, we're going to be fretting with the 1st finger on the 2nd fret. Then on the B string, fretting the 3rd fret, and on the high E string, with the middle finger, we're going to be fretting the 2nd fret. And we're only strumming those top 4 strings there. Not the lower notes, not the E or the A string. So do make sure that they ring out. So if we put those 3 chords together, the progression sounds like this. If you're feeling a little bit more adventurous, when you go from the last D chord to the G, what you can do is lead with the little finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string. So rather than just playing D, G, you can play D. So you're using that G note at the top to lead from the D to the G. It sounds a little bit more professional. bit more movement between those two chords. As with everything when you're practicing the guitar, you need to take it really slowly to start off with and make sure that you get everything right. So first of all, if you're not familiar with the chords, don't try and rush through the chord progressions and try and play all three of them, because all you'll be doing is practicing playing them wrong. So to start off with, pick the first chord, G. If you can't get the chord ringing clearly, just keep practicing it until you can. Make sure you've got your fingers in the right place, make sure you're not squeezing too hard with the fretting hand. Make sure, as I said, you're fretting close to the fret, not away from the fret, which will make it difficult to get a clear sounding chord. You want a clear chord ringing without any buzzing sound. When you can get that down and it's sounding good, move on to the next chord, C. Remembering not to strum that low E string, mute it if you can with your thumb over the top of the fretboard. Once that's down, then go to the D. Again, just remembering to strum only those top four strings, not the bottom E or the A string. Once you can do that, and once you've got the chords down, then you can start working on moving from one to the other. And back. And then on to the next, C to D. And then back, D to G. What you'll probably find is that going from the D chord to the G chord is easier to play than either of the other two progressions. The reason for that is when you're playing the D chord, you have your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. And actually the G chord also plays that note with the same finger on the same fret. So when you're moving from that chord, from the D to the G, or from the G to the D, that finger stays where it is. So basically all the other fingers are pivoting around it. It's not like when you go from the G to the C, or the C to the D, that you have to take all your fingers off and reposition all of them. You're playing that note in the D chord, and also in the G chord. And you'll find instances of that in a lot of chords, so there's a shared note. And actually that makes it a lot easier to change from one chord to the other. So just bear that in mind and build that into your practice. Once you've got all the chords under your fingers and you can play them without stopping and without making mistakes, what you can do is start to think about changing the rhythmic pattern. So to start off with, you can just play it very simply. So chord, 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 chord. And a basic strum pattern would just be a 4. Once you can play that, you can start to think about playing around with the rhythm, because that's where the interest will start to come, and it starts to sound more musical as well. You can also start to play around with the order of the chords. Just because you've got 3 chords, it doesn't mean you have to play them in that same order all the time. So I hope you guys found that useful. You can see from just 3 chords you can actually come up with quite a lot of ideas. So take those chords away, a G, a C and a D major. Practice the chords, get the chords right, get a chord progression in place, and then try and come up with your own chord progressions using those 3, using different strumming patterns. And if you can, go ahead and write a song with that as well. Do subscribe to my channel and check back soon, because I've got a lot more lessons coming up. I've been Matt Gear, this has been Matt Gear TV. You guys take it easy, and I'll see you next time.